Friends of the Youth Roundtable, comrades, ladies and gentlemen, and lovers of the Civic Space TV, welcome to episode 30 of the Youth Roundtable. Let me start by drawing a brief historical perspective into today's conversation. As Uganda, as a country, prepared itself for the 1980 general election, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, by then a leader of the Uganda Patriotic Movement, made an open statement and said that should this election be rigged, he shall openly declare a bush war against the UPC government. The country went ahead to hold its general election, and the UPC government and President Obote was declared winner and sworn in as president. Museveni lived up to his word, and indeed, with 27 guns and 41 young enthusiastic men, declared a bush war against the Obote government. We know that there was also a civil and political wing to this struggle, which had comrades like the Dr. Wakana Rugunda, the Eria Kategayas. The rest really is history. But what we know is that this week, 36 years ago, the NRA freedom fighters marched their way into Kampala. And on the steps of parliament, the president had this to say, that this is not a mere change of guards, but it is a fundamental change. Today, 36 years later, we are here to evaluate the fundamental change promised by the then National Resistance Army and today the National Resistance Movement. And to enable us to understand this conversation, I'm joined by a team of young, passionate, and well-read comrades of mine who will enable us understand today's conversation. And to introduce them to you today, I'll begin from the extreme left. My comrade and good friend, rather. He's the 87th Guild Speaker of Makerere University, Comrade, all right, Honorable Speaker, Mucyo Gatuya. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you so much.
You can say hello to the viewers.
Good evening to all the youth of Uganda. My name is Gatuya Mucyo. I am the 87th Guild Speaker of Makerere University when it is making 100 years. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Comrade Mucyo Gatuya. Next to Comrade Mucyo is my OG rather, Georginah Namuyomba. Georginah is a professional lawyer. She also has interest around non-profit law. She also has interest around human rights, democracy, financing, amongst other things. Georginah joins us as a first-timer in this conversation. Georginah, you're welcome. You can say hello to our viewers.
Thank you, Moses. Good afternoon to you all. I'm honored and humbled to be here and share my non-partisan side of the story.
Thank you very much, Comrade Georginah. Next to him is my big brother, Comrade Oyeki Gerald. Me and Oyeki come from the same village. I must tell the viewers. Oyeki is the Secretary for National Mobilisation of the National Unity Platform, but his area of jurisdiction is Northern Uganda. He also reminded me that he's a NEC member of the National Unity Platform.
That is very important. So that when you take over power, I have a clear position. My name is Oyeki Gerald. I'm from the National Unity Platform, National Secretary for Mobilisation, Northern Uganda, but also a key advocate for democracy and proper governance in this country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You didn't mention that you're a chief strategist.
I'm a political strategist.
Thank you very much.
Many of my colleagues here. Yes.
Yes. Next to Comrade Gerald is my good friend, Soverign Hasahya. Soverign is the executive assistant to the Director of Publicity and Communication at the NRM Secretariat. She's also a member of the National Youth Council of Uganda, representing the women or young girls of Butaleja district. Sovereign, you're welcome, and feel free to say hello to our viewers.
Thank you so much, Kidega Moses. We really appreciate for inviting us here. Personally, I really appreciate. I'm Hasahya Sovereign. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, all the viewers who are viewing us. I'm so glad to be here. They finished introducing me, so I won't repeat the same thing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Comrade Hasahya. And I want to begin right with you. Hasahya, this week, 36 years ago, President Museveni marched onto the streets of Kampala together with his freedom fighters and guerrilla fighters, if I'm to say. And on the floors of parliament, he had this to say, and I've mentioned it earlier on, that this is not a mere change of guards. He said that Uganda has seen so much change, and that change has become meaningless. And you promised Ugandans a fundamental change. 36 years down the road, do you think the NRA or NRM has actually lived up to its end of the bargain in terms of giving Ugandans a fundamental change?
Oh, thank you so much. Indeed, national resistance movement has really done a great, fundamental change in this country. This is because when we look in the way back, starting from even our constitutions, we used to have 1962 constitution, we had 1965 constitution, and these constitutions were not really, touching, or they were not people-centered, and they were really not, having human rights issues, which are, which is at the heart of the Ugandans. But when President Museveni came into power, him and other colleagues, they were able to, and with also consultation of the Ugandans, they were able to make the 1995 constitution, whereby it has a lot of, the whole chapter 4, it talks about human rights issues, which are, the center of people of Ugandans. Then we also have democracy. We have a lot of people who are practicing, elections. We have multi-party dispensation, whereby we have different political parties. They come and they compete favorably with, N.R.M. And this one is not done only to the president, but even we have MPs, we have the youth, we have local councils, and this has been done just because of the N.R.M. government. Then when we look at our education sector, it has really changed. Before, in our education sector, before N.R.M., we used to have only one university, and that was Makerere University. But right now we have over 52 universities, and we have 13 of them, the public universities. So this shows that there has been fundamental change in education. Then there is also UPE, Universal Secondary Education and Universal Primary Education. Personally, Hasahya Sovereign, I am a product of UPE. I was studying in Bwali Primary School from my primary level, and even from my senior 1 up to senior 4, I studied in Universal Primary Education. And when I finished, I went to university and I competed favorably. I was able to get a first class at the university. So we can be able to get, because of UPE, because of Universal Secondary Education, our education has, it has been productive, it has been brought, people have benefited from it, people have become lawyers, people have become social workers, people have become, different things. Then when we look at our health system, it has really improved. At least we have in every sub-county we have health centers, and these ones are there to deliver, health services to our people. Before, there used to be many communicable diseases, which were, we used to have typhoid, we used to have cholera, we used to have Ebola. We have seen our president fighting Ebola in Uganda. We have seen our president fighting COVID-19, this one which has, come. At least he was able to guide the country through lockdowns, through putting out guidelines, how to put on your mask, how to do, sanitize, and all these have improved the health systems. When we also look at polio, there have been a lot of vaccinations whereby our children or our babies are immunized against, the 6 killer diseases. And this one has improved their health. So when we look at ICT, it has also been it has improved because we have many industries, which have been established. We have factories which have been established, and these factories have given employment opportunities, to our young people of Uganda. When we look at agriculture, before NRM government, agriculture was just there, and it was for home consumption. Whatever they were producing was for home consumption. But when we look at now, at least we have commercial agriculture, whereby people are carrying out, they have cattle, they have, they are doing a lot of businesses. We have milk production, we have cotton, we have, coffee. There are many things Uganda is producing under the leadership of the government of NRM. Then we also
literally you're saying that you've lived up to your end of the bargain in terms of the fundamental change.
Yes, we have.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me go to the gentleman next to you. Gerald, my question to you is that the party that you belong to is the leading opposition political party in the Parliament of Uganda, and we believe that one of your roles is to offer checks and balances to the ruling party. You've heard from the NRM. They are chest thumping. They say that yes, With the emergence of the NRM, access to education has improved, healthcare, infrastructure. From where you're seated as an opposition-minded young person, what do you have to say about this?
Well, 36 years of what is claimed to be fundamentalism, with an economy that is close to hitting 50% debt burden margin, with an agricultural sector where a liter of milk, let's say in the countryside of Rachitura in western Uganda, goes for as low as 400, 500 shillings. With a kilo of maize in mid-Bunyoro, that is Kiriandongo, going for about 400, 300 at most. With as it stands now, the country lacks even a single reserve for agriculture. You see, when you're making comparisons, it's a question of comparison against what? These are questions. Do the cooperatives still exist that existed, let's say, in the Obote government or in the meantimes, when you talk of agriculture and development? When you talk about the question of health, and when you bring in the perspective of immunizations, and I think globally these are parameters at global level. The outbreak of Ebola, I think any other government would have handled it not differently, at least with respect in comparison to the previous leaderships of this country. Because then Ebola, the outbreak of Ebola, I think my area was the most affected when Ebola broke out in Lacho Hospital, 2001, in the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s. So when you speak about fundamentals, I think we need to speak about, we need to be qualitative. We need to speak facts. We need to speak figures with respect to this. If you're talking about the Constitution, I'd want to think that every sitting government in this country, I would not want to entirely exonerate the governments pre-Museveni. They have put very nice concepts on paper, but because of the strongman syndrome and the militarism, it has always been a question of how do I protect my power as the individual, but not how do we protect the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda. When you talk about a constitution that is for everyone, multipartism, that I would give credit that we have multipartism, but is it in practice anyway? Is democracy in practice? In 36 years of NRM, I would ask my sister those questions. When you talk about the concept of the economy growing and improving, when you hear scandals after scandal, the sale of Greenland Bank, Uganda Cooperative Bank, when you see our national broadcaster struggling actually to survive, when you see the national telecom company struggling to survive, when you see the national airline, you know, I mean, 36 years, you're struggling still to have 3-4 bombardiers. I mean, is that fundamentalism? I think push that question forward to the next respondent.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Georgina, I'm going to come to you shortly. Let me go to Comrade Guild Speaker. Comrade Mucyo, at the time when President Museveni flew out of Uganda during the Obote regime, around 1972, he went to Dar es Salaam, but he had very close contacts with the students of Makerere University, the likes of John Patrick Amama Mbabazi, the likes of Kahindo Tafire, among others. What does this fundamental change mean to a student? I mean, I want to imagine that by the time students haven't taken their grievances the way the students of 1980 did, is everything okay from the student perspective? But also, I understand that you're a proud member of the National Resistance Movement, so I would love to hear your views on that. Then I'll come to Georgina.
Thank you so much, Moderator Comrade Kidega Moses. Good evening to all our viewers. Once again, my name is Mucyo. You've posed a very good question to my side. And first of all, I would want to thank the President, the Chief in Command, for the fundamental change that he promised. that he has been able to deliver it. Rightly speaking, I must be the beneficiary, one of the beneficiaries of this fundamental change. When you talk about education, way back in time, we have had history in Makerere, where you'd find a good president of Makerere University not even finishing his term of office. Not even finishing it, but you would find them in scuffles with government. Not a good president, only even bill speaker. We have the Right Honorable Jacob Olanya. He has always gave his testimony when he is with people that he was shot when he was still a guild speaker of Makerere University. But this time round, you become a speaker of Makerere University, regardless of how you put out your grievances. You're sure that you go back home when you're safe. And I think he has protected us as student leaders. Then with a change in the education sector, I believe that much as he had a good connection with students of Makerere University at those times when he was still in the struggle, he has not forgotten his roots. He has kept his attachment to Makerere University and other institutions. He has kept coming in here and there to support different activities, to support different symposiums for students, and I think he has done it ably well, even when he's not doing it directly by himself, but he has people that he usually uses to giving these services, extra services to the students of Uganda. So I should say that with the contacts and the change in student leadership in the regime of General Yoweri Museveni, we should say we are really proud as young citizens of Uganda to see a 22, 23-year-old citizen of Uganda becoming a guild speaker of Makerere University, which has students that are aged 45 years, that are aged 50 years, that are aged 20 years. We have seen guild speakers, guild presidents who have been from different countries, not Uganda, meaning that his government has been accommodative, not putting strict laws and barring other foreigners from contesting in student leadership. So we should say that we really thank his government and his change, and also the willingness to change from NRA to NRM, because NRA, it makes it an army, but with NRM, which is a movement, it gives chance to everyone to join. That's why people like Mucyo, who are not interested in the army, will be free and willing to join the movement.
Catch a little bit.
Yes.
Okay.
To correct you, just
Yes.
Professor Nyaribi, the
Yes.
Malawian poet, the first guild president of Makerere, he was not a Ugandan.
Yes.
Governor Nyang Nyong'o, I think the first Makerere University guild president to earn a first-class degree, political science, wasn't Ugandan. So I wouldn't really want us to owe the capacity of the diversity of the guild presidents of Makerere to the NRM government. It's because of the space that has thrived within the university.
We have, I think it is also important that as a leader, when you find some cultures, you maintain them. So when you're able to maintain those cultures, we should also applaud you for that.
Okay.
Okay.
I cannot, yes,
Fair
completely
enough,
owe
fair
it.
enough.
Yeah.
I don't need to become a two-man
Yes.
debate.
Yeah.
Let me bring in Comrade Georginah. Georginah, this is not a mere change of guards. This is a fundamental change. 36 years down the road, as a young lawyer, I want to believe that you have interest around human rights, interest around democracy and other areas of good governance. And to me, my question would be that, as a country, do you think we have made advancements with regards to human rights? Yes, whereas during the Amin era, we know there were torture chambers. But even today, we hear about safe houses. Okay? So where, as a country, have we made progress in terms of human rights? Yes, we know that in 1985, the president, or Uganda as a country, ratified some of these international human rights conventions. Okay? I think the first was the rights against the discrimination of women. So have we made progress in terms of areas around human rights, areas around constitutionalism that you mentioned about, areas around good governance and principles of democracy? As a young lawyer, what is your own analysis of this fundamental change promised to Ugandans?
Thank you, Moses. Regarding my perspective about the fundamental change, of course, I would love to applaud the NRM government for bringing a new dawn to Uganda by enacting the 1995 Constitution after wide consultations, because I believe it was people-centered from the history we read. And NRM has still taken progressive steps to see that it operationalizes the Constitution. I'm going to focus my discussion on the Bill of Rights, Chapter 4. NRM went ahead around 2019 and enacted the Human Rights Enforcement Act. That was a big step. It's a milestone in enforcing human rights. Secondly, that constitution still embeds the doctrine of separation of powers, where the judiciary is independent under Article 128. The parliament is given its sovereign powers, the lawmaking body, without interference from the executive. And we also have the executive arm, which the president leads. But the question now is, are those checks and balances actually effective? Yes, everything is good on paper, like my comrade Oyeki said. But what the big question is around enforcement. To answer that, I'm going to talk about the aspect of rule of law. Rule of law means the law is supreme, and in this case, the law is the Constitution. Yes. It provides for these rights, freedom of expression, right to education. But you see that these same provisions are being infringed by the legislature, which makes laws that infringe some of those rights, like freedom of expression, are related to the POMA Act, the Public Management Order Act. Yes. Secondly, we have so many cases currently in the media of media being curtailed from expressing itself. What it reports is it has to be determined by UCC, you know. All those are questions around enforcement. Yes, everything is good on paper, but enforcement, I'm just bringing out pointers. Is the rule of law being respected? The rule of law has 3 tenements: accountability, passing laws that protect human rights, and these laws being enforced. Accountability, I would say NRM has tried its best. It's doing well. We have the Public Accounts Committee, chaired by mostly or by opposition leaders. That's something good. It shows that they're trying to bring accountability to these government officials, given that we have so many cases of corruption. Secondly, for laws being passed to protect human rights, we have the acts, we have the Constitution. But government, has done well in passing the laws, but the enforcement is still lacking. Why? Non-profits, that's the civil society, had come up to help operationalize those provisions, promote those human rights in education, freedom of expression, just like what we are doing right now. But you see, the same government is using one of its bodies, the NGO Bureau, to monitor. There is monitoring, which is good because they have to be compliant. Yes. But at a point, it's sometimes irrational. As you can see how DGF was shut down, recently under unclear circumstances. And this was like the lifeline for NGOs that were dispensing services, offering employment opportunities to the youth, given the high unemployment rates in the country.
65%.
Yeah. So it has done well. If I'm to talk about the doctrine of progressive realization, under those treaties we've ratified as a country, in our move to follow human rights and respect them. But still there is a lot lacking. Our government needs to strengthen its systems. It has the inspectorate arm of government, the IGG's office. It's doing well. We hear a number of officials being arrested and charged with corruption offenses. It even passed a law, the Anti-Corruption Act, which is all good, but they should prosecute the corrupt officials to the door. That's what we are looking for. Yes, they have done more, but there is more effort that needs to be put in. They've set up the Financial Intelligence Authority. They should investigate the accounts and dealings of some notable public officials, let them work in hand using the good public systems they've set in place, the laws, the offices, etc., for us to really prove that, yes, there is a fundamental change. They have everything in place, but what's still lacking is the enforcement. There is a lot that has to be done. Yeah, that's what I'll say.
Thank you. Fair enough. Comrade Georginah, that was very elaborate. Let me come to you, Sovereign. Sovereign, point 1 of the 10 points program is around democracy. And I'll tell you that Kenneth Waltz, who is a scholar of political science, will tell you that democracy isn't only about going to elections every 5 years, but it's about the doctrines of separation of powers, like Shah said, principles of accountability, respect for human rights, respect for rule of law. Is the NRM only good on paper? You have a very good, clear 10 points program. You have very good party principles, democracy, Pan-Africanism, socio-economic transformation, and then the other is nationalism. Are you only good on paper, or actually you are good at implementing the good principles and good values that you seem to project on paper?
Okay, thank you so much, my comrade Moses. Democracy, yes, it is one of the principles of NRM, because we have democracy, we have Pan-Africanism, socio-economic transformation, and all these help us as NRM to drive the country, forward. You have asked about democracy. First of all, I talked about where there is the involving, different political parties, and these ones, they go in elections and they conduct them, Then there is also about engaging different segments of people. We have youth. We have here some people who are leaders. We have different youth structures from the village level. Then we go to the parish level. We go to the sub-county level. We go to the district level, up to the national level, and that is all democracy. Because you're rising. If you're giving an opportunity a youth in the village to speak, it means you're giving them a platform. That is part of democracy. So they have involved the young people into policy decisions, into politics. Then we also have youth MPs, youth members of parliament, and we elect these MPs, and they're there in different regions, in Western, in Central, in all the regions of Uganda. We have youth members of parliament, and all this is inclusiveness. When we look at women in Uganda, we have had a lot of affirmative action when it comes to NRM government. First of all, before there was no affirmative action for the seat of women members of parliament, but right now in every constituency, at least a woman, if you cannot compete with a male person on a same seat, you can go for woman member of parliament, and this one has increased the numbers of parliament of women in parliament. Then our president has gone ahead and appointed our vice president is a female. She's a woman. Our prime minister, Honorable Nabanja, she's a woman, and we have different women we see in cabinet, and this one shows how how he has included people. We have different leagues of different like for people with disabilities, the elderly. All this is, you're trying to gather. All this is democracy, because you're carrying out the views of people. And because first of all, NRM is to address the needs of the people, because that is why we have also been in power for 36 years. It is not easy, by the way, for any political party. We have had different struggles which come out, but they are not successful. But for any struggle or any political party to sustain power, it means you are doing a lot. No one can trust you. If there's nothing you're doing, no one can do that. But the fact that NRM government has spent 36 years, it means that it is addressing the needs of the people, and that is why they have given them platform. That is why when we're going into elections, they have given them opportunity. So as NRM, we have democracy, the one you have talked about. Then we also have other pillars of socio-economic transformation.
Thank you. Let's just first focus on democracy, and then we bring in Comrade Gerald. Gerald, 2 years ago, if you asked me whether the Forum for Democratic Change would not be the current leader of opposition in parliament, I would call you insane. But today, the National Unity Platform, that is a party less than 2 years old, currently offers leadership in parliament as the face of opposition.
Yeah.
This was as a result of an electoral process. Does that speak to the democracy that the NRM is just thumping about? But also, the arbitration rate in parliament is at about 67%, meaning the people are actually changing their leaders every 5 years.
Yeah.
So is your democratic analysis only focused on the president and forgetting other political positions?
Well, thank you so much for that, Comrade Kidega. First, I would love to commend that Uganda scores actually high in the gender policy index. I think Georgina may agree with me on that. With regard to affirmative action, increased women participation in the political processes, the political democracy, I would, at that particular point in time, give it up to the government, the current government. But you see, there is what you call fundamentalism with respect to governance and democracy and politics. And this is what you call the politics of tokenism, trying to appease the larger global space. But also, most importantly, when you speak democracy, do we just talk numbers? Definitely, we know politics comes with the numerals and the numbers. But also, do we also talk, or do we speak into the space to operate and exist? That in every political year, going into elections, there's a new constituency that emerges. So does that mean actually the NRM in itself is having a vote of no confidence in its representation at constituency level? Or is it trying to play the politics of expansion and patronage? Of since you're a loyalist, let me add you and let me give you a constituency.
Okay,
when you talk about
one second, because that is gerrymandering, I believe. And when that partitioning happens, does the NRM impose a leader on the people, or the people go ahead to elect a leader to represent them in that constituency?
You see, Kidega, in practice, when you look at, because Uganda in itself is a political economy, economy where you only thrive, those who thrive, the majority of those who thrive will have to have some bit of a political inclination to the ruling system, whether directly or indirectly. Now, I appreciate that we have, let's say, 500 MPs currently in parliament, and all of them are elected by the people. Which, first, that's on principle. The people vote them into power. The question is, have these people been given the civic rights or the civic capacity to actually make the right decisions? Has the government given them that capacity? Have they given them the right education during campaigns? Or, given, much as we appreciate also the poverty index has actually gone lower, fewer people are, I think, unless the latest statistics, the poverty levels, extreme poverty has reduced. But the question is, these people, the constituents that are voting into our parliamentarians, which I agree with you, we look beyond the presidency. Why is it that within the urban areas or the urban centers, we have more voter apathy and more voter, how can I put it? Voters are more educated, voters are more enlightened to make decisions than those within the rural areas. Is it a question of democracy in its face value, or democracy by giving the people the power, the absolute power, that is the power of enlightenment to make decisions? That's a question I'd also ask.
Yes, thank you. I see you're asking so many questions, but I will push them to Comrade Mucyo. Mucyo, the issue of democracy, and like Comrade Namuyomba told us, that accountability, transparency, those are core values of a good democracy. And point 7 of the 10 points program is around corruption and misuse of power. I read a report by the State House Anti-Corruption Unit that said that Uganda loses 2 trillion Uganda shillings every financial year to corruption. Have you actually lived up to your end of the bargain in terms of advocating or putting up strong systems to fight bad tendencies of governance, like corruption, like sectarianism, like all these bad principles of democracy, but speak more to the corruption aspect of it and try to attach it to democracy as a whole?
Thank you so much, moderator. Well, when you talk about corruption, very many discussions have been rotating around corruption in this country. And I think we have ably seen the president. Maybe for our comrades, adamantly refused to listen to his communications and his addresses. But if you have really been keen to his addresses, he has been out there condemning corruption and himself instituting a position like the State House Anti-Corruption Unit. It is just a move to show you that he's against corruption in any country, but you should also accept the fact that in any society where there is money, where there are opportunities, corruption is an activity that you not deal with within just a blink of an eye. It is a process that you have to go through to make sure that you deal with the corruption vice. Because with corruption, you should not only look at the money, that transaction of money, but also when you give me, let's say if I come to apply for a job and you give me a job even when I do not qualify for that job, that is already corruption, and you may be denied some other person. So we should say that if we want to deal with corruption, I urge my fellow young leaders, sometimes we should go past the discussions of parties and governments, and also where we belong, and we look at our future as a generation. That tomorrow you'll have another party, you'll have another movement, you'll have NRM still in existence, or even national unity platform. But do you still want to grow and actually give birth, and this corruption vice is still there? It is upon us as a generation, as young people that are growing up in Uganda, to take it up as our initiative to deal with corruption. Corruption is not only in big offices, in parliament, it's not only in state houses, it's not only in security organs, but this is a vice that comes right from our childhood stages. You find students in the university, but they are really corrupt. You give someone, we have had cases in Makerere University where student leaders have been given money and they decide to go out of the country, even in other universities. So I think this is something that we just have to start on at a very young stage, and as we bring it up. And as young activists of NRA, we have made several movements against corruption. A case in point was one of 2019, where we marched and we really protested against corruption, and we are still doing more efforts in regards to that. Of course, you also posed a good question that within your time that you said sectarianism. Sectarianism is a really bad vice, even more than corruption, because we have seen countries like Rwanda that have faced that challenge, and you have seen what it has caused to their country. But then we should also, as young leaders, maybe in this side of NRM, we also request our brothers in the red corner to also deal with this vice, because we have seen certain utterances from even some of their leaders, some of their MPs, some of their mobilizers, trying to insinuate certain discussions in society that are in line with sectarianism. We should come as a whole, as a young generation, and we really shy from that, and that is a request that we are going to make as NRM to all parties. And together with corruption and sectarianism, we must deal with it as a collective unit.
Yes.
But we should also put it forward and also make it clear to the citizens of Uganda that the president, who is also the party chairperson of the National Resistance Movement, has condemned it, and investigations are going on. As Comrade Georginah said, we have seen certain government officials being prosecuted in the courts of law. That means we are really working on it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Fair enough, fair enough. Georginah, let me come to you. We know that corruption by all means has had an effect on access to justice, whereby justice goes to the highest bidder, and that by all means affects how society progresses and how it is organized. Because if you have crime rate in a society, but there is no clear judicial process on how these, criminals are brought to book, then of course you'll have anarchy in any society. Now, my question to you is a two-folded one. One, speak to the aspect of how corruption that Mucyo says they're trying to fight has affected access to justice. But two, speak to the aspect of the civic space. I'm glad you did bring it up earlier on, the shrinking civic space. And do you think that with the coming of the NRM, the civic space in Uganda has actually grown, or it has gone ahead to shrink, like you are trying to portray earlier on? Then thirdly is the rights of women. Comrade Sovereign was very intentional in terms of convincing us here that the quota system or the affirmative action has given space for women to participate in these democratic processes, to participate in the political economy, and they have gone outside there. She went ahead to cite examples of the vice president, of the prime minister, all being from the other gender. From her view, this was unheard of in the early days, but with the coming of the NRM, they have made progress in that regard. So those three issues are the issues of rights of women, the civic space, and also access to justice vis-a-vis corruption.
Okay, thank you, Moses, once again. Regarding corruption, like I earlier mentioned, the government has done so much in trying to fight corruption. We all have these campaigns. They enacted an act on its own because initially it used to be a campus under the Penal Code Act. Now there is an entire law dealing with all issues to do with corruption. It gives you a broader detail of corruption, like it lists the offenses, the elements, and even gives you the procedure on how to prosecute such offenses. Secondly, it has also put in place institutions like you can see the IGG office. I already talked about FIA, among others, and it through bodies also like justice, law, and order sector. You can still see that the government is using it as an instrument to deal with corruption in the justice or in the judiciary arm of government. Recently, they recruited new magistrates. In the past, they've not been well paid; they've been underpaid, and that led to a lot of corruption because they would be given bribes of 100 million for just a bail application, etc. So they passed a new act about administering the judicial officers. They still give them incentives and all that. You can see it's a move to see that they curb corruption. But still, like I said, there is need. All these things are, yes, it's good on paper. The systems are in place, but there is more need to amend some of these laws and come up with more stringent provisions on how to deal with the corrupt officials. There is a lot of corruption. Let me first divert away from the justice sector to the entities like, okay, some other arms of government like URSB, URA, immigration, among others. All these are government arms that offer services to people. But when you're a lawyer and you want to assist your client, at a point you're forced to pay something to get a service. You pay money to someone who is already paid to deliver that service. That's the reality in Uganda, to get things done. So yes, we are focusing on the judiciary, but also the service delivery arms of government should not be left out. So government should come up with more stringent procedures and not just look at the big officials, the ministers, the permanent secretaries, among others, or the principal accountants. Secondly, they should come up with more monitoring systems. Yes, you've appointed the judges or the magistrates, but do you take time to also monitor them, evaluate their performance? How do you assess it? Because you will go up country to the courts, they'll give you a hearing date of, let's say, 2 weeks from now. You report to court, and the judicial officer is nowhere to be seen. All these are issues that should be looked into. Yes, they've dispersed them, trying to recruit as many as possible to ease access to justice since there were fewer judicial officers, but they should also put in place systems to monitor the performance to see that, yes, we pay you all this money, you're going to get all these benefits even after you've retired, but nonetheless, perform. Don't just go there, sit and wait for your good salary and all the benefits and the immunity that comes with being a judge. Yeah, that's what I would say about corruption, because if they monitor them, that's when they'll be able to tell the corrupt judges, the corrupt magistrates, and deal with them as and when they should. Yeah, and I believe that will go a long way in enabling the citizens access justice. Yeah, because if you've been charged with defilement, remember in the Constitution, you're presumed innocent until proven guilty. What if someone just imposed those charges on you, fabricated them, and you can't even get your bail hearing? You cannot access it. You'll be in prison. We used to do prison initiatives at Makerere as in Pilak. And you got someone has been on remand for 7 years. That's unheard of yet. In the Constitution, it should be 180 days maximum. Yeah. So more judicial officers, monitor them, evaluate them, assess them. You'll be able to deal and curb such vices and ease access to justice. You've spoken about the civic space shrinking. You asked me about it. Like I said, NRM brought a new dawn using that 95 Constitution, the Bill of Rights. It brought more room. It made Uganda a habitable space to set up these civil society organizations, the non-government organizations. You could see it even improving its systems by enacting the Non-Government Organizations Act to see that they are well regulated and, monitored, because some were being used for fraudulent activities. Last year, some were suspended, and you could see that the reasons were viable, they were justifiable. Though nonetheless, yes, they're doing all the good work is being done, but at a point, in some cases, it's being, I would take it as being irrational. I do not sit in those boardrooms where all these policies are made, the laws are made, the decisions are made. But at a point, as they come up with these stringent rules or decisions that are affecting the civil society by breaking into offices of NGOs, arresting civil society operatives when they are speaking out, yes, as they do that, they should also bear in mind that this space has helped a lot in reducing unemployment. It has come a long way in promoting development. I was in Lamu for 4 months. This is a place that had huts, but due to the refugee settlement, which is something good that N.R.M is doing, that refugee system, the policy and all. But NGOs going there, the landowners, that Saido community leaders, were forced to now start building permanent structures like this to host these NGOs. Members of those host communities ended up getting jobs in these civil society organizations. And it's true some were not being compliant by entering into MOUs with the Office of the Prime Minister or not renewing their permits. Government came up with the NGO Bureau to enforce the compliance, which is a good thing. But nonetheless, as you're enforcing the compliance, be rational. Don't just close down an institution for not complying. Yet in actual sense, this institution has complied. Secondly, most of these civil society organizations use expatriates. Some of them bring in expatriates because of their technical expertise, which we need to train the local nationals. But now the fees for work permits are exorbitantly high. So that's causing the civic space to shrink. NGOs will shut down. DGF has already been shut down. I won't talk about that. Most of them are operating within minimal budgets. They can't extend their services to a wider space than they used to initially. So it has not been shrinking, but it is starting to shrink. I should say it is just the beginning. I won't say it is shrinking. It's just the beginning until something is done. And I know NRM can still remedy all this in their pursuit for fundamental change by being rational in the decisions they make and enforcing or ensuring that the civil society organizations comply with the law but logically and rationally. I'll keep stressing the word rational. He talked about militarism. There are a lot of intelligence personnel in immigration now, in NGO bureau. That is good because you don't know, some of these NGOs might be aiding human trafficking. But at a point, I feel like that's uncalled for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So
Fair enough.
I'm about to finish.
Okay.
Yeah. So for the civic space, government has done well with the NGO bureau putting it in place and ensuring that they comply. But let them be rational while ensuring the compliance, so that the civic space doesn't shrink. Lastly, rights of women. My sister, Soverign, she did well by mentioning about affirmative action, rights of women. We have women leaders and all. But the feminists, you will hear this is like their era these days. It's their generation. They're fighting patriarchy. Yes, on the face of it, we have affirmative action. That's true. We have more women leaders representing. But if you've traveled Uganda and you go on ground, that's not the case. So yes, the rights of women are being upheld. They've provided for them. All these civil society organizations are in place, government bodies. But let them spread it. Let be equal. You know, rule of law is about equality. Development is about spreading development for all. Let it be equal.
Distributive justice.
Yes, as they're doing it in Kampala and other bigger cities. Let them go to the grassroots levels. Let the women there not be forgotten, because there is a lot of patriarchy in the rural areas.
Yes.
Girls can't go to school. There are a lot of teenage pregnancies. The boy should study, the boy cannot, the girl cannot study. So yes, as they're doing all this affirmative action and upholding these rights, let it be diversified and decentralized to the grassroots. Let it be widely dispersed. Of course, it's not easy. It takes time, but let them become intentional about it.
Okay.
And yeah.
Thank you. Fair enough. This brings us to the end of phase one of this particular conversation. I want to thank you, Comrade Mucyo. Thank you, Comrade Georginah, Comrade Gerald, and Comrade Sovereign. Thank you very much to our viewers. You've heard from them. Please go ahead to put your comment on the comment section. Go ahead to subscribe to this channel so that you can get weekly updates of our conversations. This has been phase one, and phase two shall come. And Gerald, please prepare, because I'll begin with you. Let's go for a commercial break. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, our viewers, for staying with us. We hope that you are enjoying today's conversation. Like I mentioned earlier on, feel free to put your comments on the comment section, but also feel free to go ahead and like our YouTube channel and also subscribe to this particular TV show. Comrade Gerald, like I had promised that I will get back to you at the beginning of this particular session.
Yes.
And here we are once again. The leader of your party, the Honorable Kyagulanyi Robert Sentamu, in the 2018 Democratic Party National Convention had this to say.
Yes.
He said that we believe in elections, and people like Besigye who don't believe in elections should give them space. And indeed, I think Besigye took heed of that advice and did not participate in the most recently concluded general elections. As a party, do you still stand to what your president said? Do you still believe in elections?
Yes, Moses, democracy works. Globally, democracy has worked. It has produced results. We still firmly maintain that position, that indeed democracy works. It is a question of the environment within which the democracy is being practiced. That's what you should question at the end of the day. It's a question that brings us back to the question of, are we in a democracy or we are in a military state? Because the question around whether we still believe in that statement or not goes back to the doctrines, the fundamental doctrines or principles of adult suffrage. There's no particular, or at least within the global systems of politics, there's at least no better system of determining our leaders other than democratic processes. So the spirit within which, definitely our principal mentioned it, Robert Chagulanyi Sentamu, but also realize that within our own region, when you go to Kenya, when you go to Tanzania, when you go to South Africa, the ANC, they fought so much. That's when we say that when you talk about fundamental change, if you have decided to take the path of the democratic, can you therefore give it in its plain sense? Can you fully accord the population democracy, the adult suffrage, one vote, one person, one man, one vote? Or are we going to put a semblance of democracy, and yet in the actual sense, we are operating under a military system, operating under a system where personally I've had an experience. You're delivering paper, DRA forms, you know, to the party headquarters, and then they are grabbed away from you. So it's a question of in what context are we practicing that democracy? So yes, democracy works.
Democracy works.
Yes.
And let me bring in Comrade Georginah. Georginah, you've heard Gerald. Gerald says that democracy works. And from what we saw in the most recent concluded elections, was that what you'd call a free and fair and democratic election? Or you still think that there are shortcomings regarding our electoral democracy as a country, regarding areas of maybe voter protection or maybe voter bribery, maybe things, I have heard them say, voter intimidation,
yes,
amongst other bad practices that affect democracies. As a lawyer, and from your analysis of, rule of law and principles of good democracies, do you think that from the most recent election, are we on the right path towards building a strong democracy as a country?
I will decline respectfully. With what I witnessed last year and in 2020, what stood out during that election period was the voter intimidation, the endless deployment of military personnel during an election period for anything small, as long as it had something to do with the opposition, does not point to the fact that it was a free and fair election or a fairly democratic process. Everything was in order to do with recruiting the right officials who conducted the elections, giving space for the candidates to campaign and hold their rallies. But the voter intimidation is what really stood out. Like I always say, it was uncalled for. And that does not show that the process was free and fair. And as a country, we still have a lot to do to be on the right track to have a democratic system.
Okay.
Yeah, because of the militarization, actually, it's a threat. It threatens this whole constitutional process we are trying to protect, we are trying to uphold. If you trust your laws, your government departments, and the responsible officials to conduct an election, you do not need the arm or support of an army. Though I would also still like to commend, if I have my facts right, to commend the government. I understand some soldiers infringed people's rights at that time, but the court-martial has done well in executing the said soldiers who infringed rights. At least I watched news and I read somewhere that some of them were prosecuted for the acts they did at that time.
But you see, the question at that point is, have those that have led these commanded these attacks, have they been brought to book with respect to that? Or are they going for the small fish at the end of the day, Georgina? This is a question we ask ourselves. Have the commanders of these operations actually been brought to book? Or is it just for the image or for the picture that let us post up on the cameras?
I will not go deep into the political conversation.
Yeah.
But for me, I believe in progressive realization. The fact that there was the intention and the action of prosecuting the soldiers who infringed people's rights, that were doing all those brutality acts that we witnessed at that time, that shows something. Yes, we do. First of all, we are not sure it's even the big fish, or okay, it is said, it is hearsay. I'm a lawyer, I don't like
But
believing in hearsay.
It's carrot and stick.
Okay.
They're trying to
Yes,
execute
but at
it.
least, you know,
Yeah.
criminal charges are personal.
Okay.
Yeah.
They are not institutional.
No, it's personal, you get. So the fact that they charge the responsible persons, it shows at least there is a step. And if you keep on advocating and strengthening the systems, like I said, in the IGG's office, that's when we are going to get all the people and the faces behind and charge them personally. So it's a process, but at least they took measures, progressive realization, to do something to show the public that yes, this was wrong, but we are trying our best to at least first deal with how you call them, the small fish. Once they also organize themselves and organize the systems, like I said, the IGG's office and the other arms of the government, the top fish will be brought
Thank you.
to book.
No, Gerald,
Yeah.
just 1 second.
Yeah.
Allow me moderate the conversation.
Okay.
Otherwise,
Yes.
it becomes
All right.
a two-man conversation.
So,
Let me just, Georgina, just hold it right there. Let me go to Comrade Mucyo. Ndugu Mucyo, voter intimidation, voter bribery, the military participating in our politics, and the state being actively involved into the democratic processes of this country are all accusations coming from the red corner, like you've heard what Comrade Oyeki is saying. From the yellow corner, what do you have to say?
Well,
Point 1 of your 10 points was around democracy.
yes.
Is this the democracy that you promised Ugandans?
Well, when we talk about democracy, democracy is a wide thing, and many discussions have been held in line with democracy. But when many were focusing on 2021 general polls, when we talk about voter intimidation, for example, I want us to differentiate the party from state and security work. When we are into an election, when the president is in an election, we should also give security its mandate to do the roles that he has to do. For example, when you're a security operative, and much as the party chairperson is also the president, and he's also in an election, the security should keep doing its work. If you have people intimidating and you have people inflicting or even proposing to cause harm, proposing to cause insecurities in the country, when you hear, as any security personnel, when you hear someone saying that we have plan B, regardless of how the election goes on, then you also have to be careful as security personnel. What I've not learned security details, but from the small knowledge that I know, that a security personnel does not take chances. That when you hear Comrade Oyeki or Comrade Kidega saying that we shall burn down shells, we shall burn down Total, as a security personnel, the moment you identify...
Just 1 second, Mucyo.
Yes.
The head of state of this country
Yes.
made almost a similar threat to the country that if his election is not, if the votes are rigged in 1980, he shall declare a bush war against the Obote government. So could the Geralds be learning from our president, who said that, I mean, irrespective of the democratic processes, I'm going to now follow a guerrilla bush war?
Well, that is also a question that I've always posed to my comrades in the red corner. That are you providing an option that is totally different from the NRM, or you're actually copying, you're in the same script as the NRM? What to expect from opposition that you have to do totally different things? If the president made such statements at the times of Obote, it was upon the government of Obote to act. But this is the government of General Museveni. When for him, he's so serious, even to the smallest thing that you think, that when he says something, he will take it serious, and his security operatives.
Allow me
So
to
what
confirm that.
happened?
I
So
think-
what
I think-
happened?
I think the
Gerald,
biggest
first
fear.
give him a second to complete
Yes.
his point.
Mm.
Then
So
you can
what
come.
happened in the elections? First of all, we should understand the period into which these elections happened. We were in a period where we were close to losing 100 people every day due to COVID. So if we were operating in a time of COVID and guidelines were issued by the election commissioners, and you saw people vividly and adamantly violating these guidelines, and you expect someone to pamper you just because you're the opposition lead. You saw the president observing SOPs whenever he was having his rallies.
So you're saying that the state acted in regard to meeting its end of the bargain.
In some scenarios, the president...
That the state
yes.
must provide security to its citizens.
Yes.
And therefore, when a threat to the citizens
yes.
is posed, the state has the obligation to
come in
act
yes.
so as to protect the greater good.
Yes.
Fair enough.
Yes.
Gerald, I'll give you 1 second before I can bring in.
Allow me to
Sovereign,
react to that. Statistically or numerically, we have lost more lives to the bullet than actually to COVID itself within this span, at least by numerals, and even to poverty. That narrative has been traded ever since this killing started. But when you go deeper into the people that the security claims to have averted threats from, market vendors, someone on the street selling food, going about their business, a vendor at a bar, stray bullets, that's what they call it. So I think the biggest fear that we have is the creation and the making of the NRM. That NRM is the state and the state is NRM in itself. They are one and they cannot be separated. That I'm arrested at a polling station in Agago district, and then the security officer, the first thing that he makes is a statement that tends towards my political affiliation as a party. That clearly shows the fusion between the state and the party. So I would want to first debunk what our comrade Mucyo says, that the state and the party are two independent entities, but these have acted as one in all the execution of duties within the spaces. That one Museveni will tell you this is not an election, it is a military operation, it's an operation of its own. So it clearly shows us that they do not take it as an election, not a democracy. They take it as a military operation, such that responsibility has to be taken first. That yes, there were loss of lives and there were extreme actions from the side of the government. As you say, the state's supposed to protect its citizens. So do we say that vendor who was on downtowns vending Katogo is not a citizen that the state should have protected?
I would want Comrade Oyeki to comment about the robberies from the citizens themselves. People would stop cars and collect money from them. What did you expect state to do in that lane?
You see, also the use of language within this context of discussion.
Just to supplement,
yeah.
Maybe what Mitch is trying to allude to is the scenes that the country saw, whereby we saw hammer-wielding young people,
beating
police officers, and then undressing the women who were in yellow dresses.
We saw cars being vandalized.
So does it mean that the violence was initiated by the other side, and therefore the state only came in to quell and to maybe restrain and to protect the citizens, and then maybe the others?
That's an important question, also an assertion that Mucyo Gatuya puts into perspective. The question is, why is it, I would ask a question, why is that it is such a way that the violence is targeted towards one particular group of people? That when you say that someone was being targeted because of putting on a yellow t-shirt on the streets, do we have evidence beyond doubt? Because then it was the politics, at the heat of the politics. Do we then have evidence that beyond doubt that the attack was instigated by someone who belonged to, let's say, NUP, or it was just a question of citizens acting by impulse within the streets? Or it could have even been state managed to create a scenario of NUP being violent. But also, the state also in its own wisdom should be able to act in such a way that the proportion with which you provide security must not go to the extent with which lives are lost.
Must be measured.
It must be measured. The question, because I also want to correct the terminology
Mm.
of robbery and theft, because robbery sometimes involves the use of armory and machines.
Mm.
The question is, under how many circumstances during the elections have we seen actually civilians use weapons as guns, okay, that could call for proportionate response of using a gun in response to quell the situation? That's also
Okay.
just such a question.
Thank you. Fair enough. Let me come to Comrade Sovereign. And I'm going to shift gears slightly into the economy. Comrade Sovereign, if you read Dambisa Moyo is an economic scholar from Oxford University and I think Harvard as well. She tells you that the economies of many of these developing countries are dual economies, okay? That you have the economy divided into an in proportional, division. And you have a group of maybe 15% of the country's population that participate in the global market. They have the factors of production in their control. Then you have the other 85% of the population that don't participate in the global market. They have no access to factors of production, and they are the young people, the semi-skilled laborers. Whereas the NRM, boasts about how much they have contributed towards building the economy. And I read a World Bank report that was released last year in June, and they said that the economy of Uganda before COVID-19 was growing at a tune of 7% per annum, which was a progressive curve, I must say. But this economy is actually in the hands of few individuals, like Dambisa Moyo will tell you. The 10% of the country's population control almost everything. So whereas our GDP is growing, yes, now at I think about 37 billion US dollars, it is still being controlled by a few group of people. Is this the economy that you promised Ugandans? And I think point number 8 or point 10 speaks about the mixed economy, and how Uganda's economy, desires to grow and to develop. Is this the economic situation you promised Ugandans 36 years ago?
Well, thank you so much. I like the fact that you've agreed that the GDP of the country has really increased. Uganda as an economy, as you have elaborated, we all know that when when NRM came into power, it introduced some of the social policies, for example, privatization, whereby we have individuals who are allowed to do, they are allowed to do businesses, they can carry out different things, and they are able to get money. So we all know that in liberalized economies, and the peace the NRM government has brought, because NRM has brought peace and stability. When there is no peace and stability, people cannot develop, people cannot do, they cannot do businesses, they cannot do commercial agriculture, they cannot do many things. But now, because of the NRM government, we have seen that it has provided peace and stability. So people have gone into what? Into businesses. And this is not only, as you have said, that it is only for the few individuals. I would say that to me, I don't agree with that, because our economy, it is so open. Anyone can come out. Yes, it is inclusive. Anyone can come. We have foreign investors who come in our country, and they are doing businesses, and these investments they are doing, they're helping our young people. We have Madivan, and they have carried these businesses, and they have given employment to our youth and also other people, inclusive. So we also have Ugandans themselves who are Ugandans, and they can also invest in businesses. They can carry out different, ventures, and this one can also help them to bridge the gap between, as you're saying, those ones who are highly maybe in upper and those ones who are low. So the environment, to me, I think it is all about you as an individual. What are you doing? What are you doing to better yourself as youth of Uganda? I know, yes, there's a lot of maybe unemployment and a lot of things. And this one has come because we have had a lot of education, and the jobs, especially civil service jobs, are not enough to accommodate all the population, which is so educated in Uganda. But as young people, we have had also other programs like skilling. In Kampala, we have presidential skilling on girl child. And this one, they are offering tailoring skills, they're offering hairdressing skills. So when you get these skills as youth, we can be able to, to start up maybe a salon. You can start up a business. And when you do this skilling, it helps you to get income. So let us not only wait for maybe white collar jobs, because at the end of it all, not everyone is going to leave the job, you know, that this year the civil service, they are laying off these certain people. But it is, you know, it is progressive. So we have to just, all of us, we just have to find ways of how we can survive in this country, as long as the government has provided electricity. People can venture into businesses which are run by electricity. There is good road network. People can transport their goods from Chisoro to Mbale, from Tororo to, you know, to different parts of the country. At least there is that good road network whereby farmers can transport their goods and services to different places. So let us at least use these opportunities as a country. We come out of, you know, our comfort zones. We come out of, you know, crying all the time. But let us be proactive. Yeah, like let us involve ourselves in productivity, especially the young people of Uganda. Let us not blame all the time. What does the government? What has it done for us? But you, as a youth, what have you done? You go an extra mile. At least you can, you know, you can start even using maybe maybe you can do chapati, anything, brick making, even though you're educated.
Hustle.
So,
Hustle, yeah.
yes, we can hustle.
Yeah, sure. Still on the economy, Georgina, let me just draw your mind on something. The USA, so many years ago, had the smooth hole tariff. This was an economic policy that encouraged the American economy to be inward looking, okay? They levied high taxes on foreign produced goods, whereas charged low taxes or even gave incentives to the domestic companies. This was to encourage the American economy to grow until a point when they can ably compete with the international companies. And that's why today we celebrate the Wall Street companies, okay? Now, bring it back to Uganda's context. And I'm not saying that we should compare Uganda to the USA, but the USA was intentional in terms of having an inward-looking economy. Uganda seems to be doing the contrary. We offer more tax incentives to foreign investors, whereas our local domestic investors are choking on debt and choking on taxes. Yes, there is the UDP, okay, but there are still questions around its capitalization, okay, because you know that the government, whereas it has offered the private or domestic investors a scapegoat in UDP, it still lacks the funding. So where does this leave our economy moving forward? There is high privatization, yes, but the same private companies are struggling with taxes, but also the foreign competition is too high, okay? And in the name of, no, anyway, I'll say that for Gerald, but you speak to the economic situation of the country. Is it, okay, do you agree it is outward looking, first of all? And if so, what do we do?
I will agree that it is outward looking. Like you've said, to attract foreign direct investment, government is giving all these incentives to the foreign investors to the detriment of the local, the private sector. I'll coin it as the private sector. But much as that's the case, from my observations working closely with SMEs in the past year, through the Ministry of Trade, government introduced the project called Buy Uganda, Build Uganda. And in a way, it has promoted visibility for these local products made by local companies. But still, there is a challenge with that project. Why? Yes, the goods are on market, but many issues have been coming up with the quality of the goods. And for those goods to compete favorably, both locally and internationally, when they're exported, these goods have to be of high quality. Secondly, we as the local people or the SMEs, the private sector, we need to do a lot of value addition. A country like Kenya has a lot of value addition. I'll give an example of ginger. Here you will just crush it and maybe make tea and all that. But Kenya is going to use ginger to make grounded ginger. It will use it to make tea masala. We lack that creativity as a country. Yes, our economy is not doing well at the moment, but government is has put in place a number of programs. I've talked about Buy Uganda, Build Uganda. There is URI, I think it's the Uganda Industrial Research Institute, to see that they work on the quality. There is a lot of awareness that is being promoted by UNBS for Ugandans to come on board, the Ugandan local market producers, and comply with the regulations thereunder to see that the goods match the quality, not only to participate in the local market, but also participate in the African Free Continental Trade Area. I look at it as an opportunity for the local SMEs. Secondly, much as foreign direct investors are on board and they're being given all these incentives, but Uganda is now making it habitable. It's creating a conducive space for impact funds. If you've heard of a private equity, that concept, for these funders from Europe or Arab to come and invest in local companies, and the person or the company in which they invest later gives a return of investment. Sadly, it's the case now, but few people are aware of it. The lucky few that you said the economy belongs to the 10%. Initially, it has been the case. The funds are there, but few people in high-placed places know about it. So the private sector, through, I think, Uganda, is it Private Sector Foundation, is entering into MOUs with the Ministry of Trade and other non-state actors to promote awareness about these funds, to teach SMEs how to be compliant so that they can become investor ready. URSB, it's a government arm. These days, starting from last year, it has been marketing itself aggressively. I don't know if you've realized on LinkedIn, the new registrar general. I should actually commend her. She's doing so much in promoting awareness about the services URSB offers, telling people that if you register a trademark, you can actually borrow money with a trademark. A trademark is just a logo, what people would call logos. Then people didn't know, now they know. So, because what we need for the economy to be boosted, much as we've noted the corruption concerns, you've said all these incentives are given to the investors and the local companies are highly taxed, which is true, we all know that. But we still have hope. And through these government arms and the private sector, they are teaming up to come over that problem, to go around it and increase funding, because it's what these businesses need to be injected in. And then they will increase their scale of production and not only produce locally, but and also internationally. Though for them to do that, they should also work on the quality of products they put out there. So the government will give incentives to the foreign investors who know what to do, give us the high quality goods, which Ugandans love. You know, we will buy American Garden and leave ketchup, or what is it called? Tomato sauce. We will not eat tomato sauce, but we'll buy ketchup because of the quality. We ourselves.
Value addition.
Yes.
Let me just bring in Comrade Gerald. Comrade Gerald, last week, there was a video of the Right Honorable Prime Minister that went viral. And I recall your leader or your party president shared the same video on his Twitter page. But one of the most interesting comments under his Twitter thread was that a young person posted a video of him when they asked him about the fiscal policy of his political party. And there has been controversy around his response regarding the fiscal policy plan of the National Unity Platform. Let me give you a chance today to tell our viewers what is the fiscal policy plan of the National Unity Platform.
Well, National Unity Platform has a...
Or what's your economic policy anyway?
Yes, we have a very clear document on what we plan for this country in regards to the economic policy. That goes as far as appreciating the existence of raw material, that is from the natural resources, utilization, and the distribution, equal distribution, into what we call the federal system of economic distribution, allowing each and every region to thrive from the resources within their vicinity. That within Karamoja, when you have rocks, when you have the game parks, when you have the minerals, when you have the cattle, can the Karamoja region directly benefit in terms of employment opportunities, in terms of access to education, in terms of access to healthcare? So ours, it's more of like a social, it's more of a social democratic economy, distribution of wealth into the hands of the population from within the precincts of the access to their natural resources. And to us, we think that whereas we are not, as our principal mentioned, that because we may not be in government currently, we think that there are what you call the indicators or the benchmark economies, that when you have an internal you tap into the internal resources, the human capital index, utilizing the population, the human population, the young people, to expand or increase on their access to resources, to increase their wealth at the end of the day, and increase the middle income population. That is non-political in nature. That is a brief about it.
Yeah, thank you. Just at least I want to pick your mind all on the economy, and I want to come to you, Comrade Mucyo. Mucyo, you're from the Yellow Corner, and your government has on several occasions brought up social programs to enable the country, become poverty free. We have seen the likes of Bonaba Gagawale, the likes of Emioga. We have seen all those programs, and now your government has brought the parish development model. Your approach towards economic growth of the country seems to be more of a socialism approach, like the one Mwalimu Julius Nyerere introduced in Kenya, the Ujama. But Mwalimu, at the end of his tenure, considered and said that Ujama failed to work. So do you think that this approach of continuously giving people money, does it create complacency in the population and make us not be... Because my view is that the government must create an environment where I don't need to go and get money from Emioga, from where, but I can thrive in my respective profession or in my business.
Tap into the resources available.
Do you think that the government approach needs to be should change now so that the economy can, grow at a faster pace?
Okay, thank you so much. Of course, there should be a disclaimer that the failure of Ujama does not mean that all activities that
are social aid,
that are associated and are similar to Ujama will not succeed.
Fair enough.
This is Uganda has a different setting in regards to handling of such initiatives. I think initiatives like Emioga, initiatives like the parish model, Bonaba Gagawa, the initiatives that are there are initiatives. There are very many. This government is really so innovative that they will create a lot of avenues for the young people, for the old people, for every age category. But then it also goes back to accountability. For example, I would request that the legislators of this country, where we have all parties represented, maybe apart from the ANT, but where we have all parties represented, we want to see these legislators, even those from the red corner, the blue corner, like try to pose policy issues on these initiatives, that because this is government money that is being spent on initiatives, taxpayers' money. So it is important that as MPs, as legislators, you enact policies that can hold these initiatives and people that are giving out this money accountable. Like, what is its long-term effect to the society? So what I would want to put all this issue of economy to the policymakers of this country, that they will need to play a very big role in line with reviving the economy of Uganda. We should also accept the fact that we have faced a very big challenge of COVID-19 that has been with us for 2 years. You know its impact in the economic sector. If those countries in the first class have really complained about COVID, who is Uganda not to complain about the situation?
Thank you very much. I think now we have had a hint on the political. We have had a brief tap into the economic sector. Now, just let's briefly talk about the social aspect of Uganda moving forward. You know that Uganda is a very young country, and there's been a question posed to all of us that can Uganda harness or benefit from its demographic transition? The country, about 78% of our population is of young people. So the question on the social aspect now is that do you think that Uganda has the capacity to, one, harness its potential in terms of human capital, being a very young country? Then two, let's speak to national unity of the country. We know that point 3 of the 10 points program is about national unity. And I think the people of the NRM, you know this. How far have we gone with regards to achieving national unity? Because I'll tell you that the country of Uganda, when something happens with the Kabaka, it is a Buganda affair. When me and Gerald Oyeki were having war in the north, it was a northern Uganda affair. When issues happened in Kasese, Kasese affair. So the issue of national unity, you know, and its social aspect. So two things, the young population, and is our country ready to harness from that population? Two, national unity, then that shall be it from the social aspect. So, Mucyo, I see you're ready, but let me give you a chance to rest a little bit. Gerald, kick us off. You have 2 minutes, then.
Well, from the perspective of the National Unity Platform, which in essence represents by all standards Uganda's demography, you realize that 90% actually of the National Unity Platform leadership actually are young people who were born either in 1986 or after 1986. So they are not, on average, even on the National Executive Committee, you find that the average or the mean age is about 30, 28 to 30. And that clearly indicates to you actually the concept, one, of the yearning and the thirst for young people to take up the leadership space of the country. But also, two, it represents what needs to be done, what must be done. Because the question of unity, the question of progress, lies within a generation of young people. That within the generation of Yoweri Kaguta Museveni in 1980, they found it fundamentally very significant. And I was sharing with colleagues that the average age of the people at that time that went to the bush was about 27, 28. The Kasirye Gwangas, Mugisha Muntu, 24, 25 years old. So to me, I think within the hierarchies, within the 10-point program of the NRM, they have outlived that particular point of where you find that it stopped, whereas you have the young tax at the lower levels, the decision-making body, the SEC, the neck, the average age is 50, 60 years. Are you going to plan for a Kidega Moses who is in his 20s, effectively at the end of the day? So I think, to me, the National Unity Platform has the best or the best case scenario of national unity within this respect and progress moving forward.
Thank you. Hasahya, same question.
All right, thank you so much, Moses. Regarding the youth participation in our party, as you have said, it is true. The youth of Uganda constitute 70% of the population, and that shows how majority of this population, how young people are so majority. So, as NRM, they really prioritize the youth because we have, starting from even the NRM league from the village level up to the national level, even SEC has a member of the NRM league who is a youth. So, and SEC, that is the executive organ whereby decisions are made. So we have a youth representative. When it comes to members of parliament, we have all of them by the NRM, and I'm so proud of that. Then when it comes to, we also have National Youth Council. It is full of young people, and 90% of members of the National Youth Council, these are the leaders of the country, the NRM. When we go down in the districts, we have district councils and youth councils, and we have the youth representatives. We have youth councillors that are there in the local government council. We have district youth council, and these are youth. So it goes down up to the village level. So that shows the level of inclusiveness the NRM has put and prioritized the youth. So the challenges, that one we just we know that our government, the challenges which are facing the youth, it will tackle on that. When it comes to national unity, NRM as a party, it has really worked on national unity. First of all, it restored the kingdoms because first of all, they were abolished, but now they restored the kingdoms. We have Buganda Kingdom, we have Busoga, we have Toro. So at least people can be able to, unite in their different kingdoms. Then we also have religious affiliations here in our country. You are free. We have freedom of worship. You can be either Muslim, you can be a Christian, you can be any other person. We have people, there is
social liberty.
Yes, so socially, we are, as a country, we have really included people socially. When it comes to marriage, you're free to marry any tribe you want.
As many wives as you want.
Yes, and many wives as you want.
Okay.
So no one limits you that, So we all have that in, it is all included in our NRM agenda.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's conclude with the yellow views. So Mucyo.
Yes.
Just add on to what your comrade from the yellow corner is saying.
Yes, I will appreciate my comrade from the yellow corner for bringing out everything that is really entailed in the NRM agenda for the young people. I believe if you have to talk about the young people, the NRM party has been so accommodative, in line with accommodating the young people in the system. For example, if you want to understand if the young people of Uganda have really welcomed the NRM party, you'll have to make a benchmark. And the first place where you'll make a benchmark from is the National Youth Council. That if the youth are taken into polls to vote, if you have an election where it is only the young people voting, what are the numbers of all other parties? If you're to compare the NEC, the National Executive Committee of the National Youth Council, where our moderator is also a member, you'll find that you have only two independent members, and of course all of them are NRM leaning. The other 9 are all NRM flag bearers. When you look at the numbers of NRM, if you have 450 members of the National Youth Council, you will find that about 350 are NRM flag bearers from their districts. So you'll find that when the young people are taken into polls, they really vote the NRM, implying that they have welcomed the agenda of the NRM. And I also urge our comrades from the other side to embrace and follow the manifesto week, because as the NRM party, we always have a manifesto week where various ministers and various people from the party come and give what they have done in line with the manifesto of the NRM. We also have a manifesto implementation committee that follows the manifesto of the president and that of the party to see that most of the things that were promised are being done. So it is important that they also engage with those committees and get to know what was in the manifesto of NRM and what was done. I will conclude with, of course, in line with loving the young people. If the NRM loves the young people, we shall start with the agenda of the party, Pan-Africanism and nationalism, that you have to first build your people inside. You will find that if we talk about nationalism or Pan-Africanism, you have to buy things within Uganda. And these things that are made by young people of Uganda. You're providing them with market. The government has gone on to improve its education sector, of which the education sector, 90% of it is are the young people benefiting from the education sector. Because if you want to empower someone, then educate him. Then, of course, different programs that have been brought to enhance and also shock absorb the young people, like Emyoga, like the parish model, to see that young people benefit more in those programs.
Thank you. Our time is fast spent.
Thank you.
And I'll hold you right there. Georgina, you have 2 minutes. Then after which we shall take closing remarks.
Thank you, Moses. I will not say much. Most has been said by my colleagues, but I'll point out a few things. We applaud the NRM government for what it has done with the inclusion of having youth parties from at the grassroots level and the top level. But I'll pose a question to the parties concerned. Do they evaluate the performance of the youth leaders? Because it turns out most of them that get into these offices, it's a matter of going somewhere, speaking like we are speaking. They get that token, and towards the election period, they will try to do some activities that give them visibility to get another term. Yeah, it has been very prevalent. So yes, there is inclusion, but there is need to come up with mechanisms to evaluate the performance of the youth MPs and the youth leaders. That's a takeaway. The other thing is, as they come up with these economic empowerment programs for the youth, it's a good thing. We applaud the government. We need more transparency and accountability. Have they checked into that? That's also a question I'm posing on my comment to that. The youth programs are there, they're in place, but is all the youth benefiting, or it's a given few that keep on benefiting every time the money is disbursed? Yeah, then lastly, for national unity, we are doing well, I must say, but of course there are small prevalent issues of tribalism coming in here and there, where Uganda says, I'll not buy from Nyankole. You tend to realize businesses from that are started by people from the West tend to be more successful because of the unity the West has compared to businesses started from, these other tribes. All those small issues usually come up here and there. Yeah, we have the national unity in place, but that's something they should check in. I will not say much. I'll stop there. Those are the few pointers I wanted to raise from what my colleagues had contributed.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. 30 seconds, look into that camera and give us your last words, beginning from you. 30 seconds, then we are done.
All right, thank you so much. Once again, I'm Soverign, and from the NRM. As my last message to the NRM youth leaders and all the youth outside there, let us embrace the government programs, for example, the parish model, the Emyoga, such that when you get this money as a young person, you can be able to invest it, then you can be able to change your life economically. Then also, as NRM, we have ideological clinics, and these ideological clinics, they are always at our NRM Secretariat, and we can also follow them online. So you can follow them online, learn about NRM. There are many issues you can, raise, and there are many, in case you have any questions, you can raise them, and they are there. Our fathers are there. They are going to teach us. They are going to train us, and you can be able to learn more about NRM as a government. There is also a National Leadership Institute, which is Chankwanzi, and this one purely trains NRM cadres. So in case you're interested, you can come at NRM Secretariat, you register yourself in the office of the youth under the youth desk, and they will take your particulars, because the party is so much willing to train the young people into a productive force, which is going to sustain the revolution of NRM. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Gerald, 30 seconds. The camera is yours.
Well, my message to my colleagues and citizens of this country is that patriotism cannot be taught. It is learned at birth. And therefore, we therefore understand that there is everything wrong, at least in as far as the governance of this country is concerned. It is incumbent upon us as young people to appreciate and to understand that every generation has a mission that must either choose to live up to it or to betray it. Thank you.
Georgina?
I'll start by saying that no one is perfect.
Start or end?
No. As I end, I'll start by saying that nothing or no one is perfect. NRM has done its best, but there is room for improvement. And given that it has done all it has done to get to the level it is, we believe they can still do so much to improve. I also want to call upon the country as a whole. Let this be collective. Yes, we've noted all these problems, pointed them out, the challenges and whatnot, but do not sit in your comfort and just watch or spectate. Do something about it. For the youth, be empowered. Go for those empowerment activities. The working mothers or the women, stand up for your rights that the government has done so much to uphold. And those that can hold the state accountable, like the legislators, please be transparent as you do your work. Let it be a joint effort. If you're appointed to do your duty in public office, please live up to it and see that we end this vice or fight it, the vice called corruption, because it's the greatest problem we are facing as a country. That's all I have to say.
Yes,
Thank you.
Right Honourable Speaker, 30 seconds.
Thank you so much to all our viewers that have given in their time to listen to us. Once again, my name is Mucyo Gatuya. Gatuya Mucyo is my name, and I'm the guild speaker of Makerere University. I will thank all my comrades that have been on this show for those good ideas they have had to our comrades on the other side. We have taken in your suggestions, and as NRM, we are accommodative and we continue to welcome you to see light, and we shall surely welcome you. I will conclude by thanking His Excellency John Yoweri Kaguta Museveni for ably leading this country and also inviting me to be part of the Liberation Day celebrations, which I really believe it is a fundamental celebration to this country. Thank you so much. May God bless you.
Yes, to our viewers, many thanks for sparing the time and for being with us this afternoon. I must say you have been an amazing audience, and you have heard from the panelists. They have told you and have given you their mind regarding NRM at 36. You too can be part of this conversation. Go straight to the comment section and tell us what you think about the NRM at 36. Otherwise, thank you very much for joining us. And to the panelists, Comrade Mucyo, thank you. Comrade Georginah, thank you. Comrade Gerald and Comrade Sovereign, many thanks for sparing the time to be with us on this conversation. To our viewers, until next week, same time, same day, see you then. Thank you. Have a lovely week. Bye-bye.